For more than half a century, my life began the same way every single Monday morning. The same key in the same lock, the same click of the door opening, the same quiet moment before the world woke up. 6:15 in the morning, Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, a small shoe shop that smelled like leather, glue, and time itself. I would turn on the lights, start the coffee, straighten the benches, and prepare for another day. And here's something people are always surprised to hear: I didn't hate it. Most days, I genuinely loved it. I loved the craft. I loved the rhythm of my hands moving over leather. I loved seeing customers turn into familiar faces, and familiar faces turn into friends who'd been coming in for decades. That shop gave me dignity. It gave me routine. It gave me purpose. But standing behind that counter for all those years, I also became something else without realizing it. I became a witness. I watched men and women walk through my door, carrying more than worn-out shoes. They carried exhaustion, regret, deferred dreams. I listened to the same sentence over and over again, spoken with a laugh that never quite reached the eyes. Next year, they'd say. Next year, I'll retire. Next year came. Then another. Then another. And the sentence never changed. Until one day, the person stopped coming in. And it wasn't because they finally retired. It was because they couldn't come in anymore. My name is Salvatore Benedetto. And if you stay with me until the end of this story, I promise you this won't just be about retirement. It will be about time. And there is one question I'm going to ask near the end that most people avoid their entire lives. If you hear it honestly, it might change what you do next. I'm not here to talk about investments, percentages, or spreadsheets. Other people do that better than I ever could. I want to talk about the part nobody wants to sit with. The human part. The part that makes people uncomfortable. The moment when you have to decide whether to keep going or whether it's time to stop. Because after watching hundreds of lives unfold from behind that counter, I learned something painful and true. Most people wait too long. They keep working until their body forces the decision for them, until the energy is gone, until the dreams they saved for retirement turn into memories of things they never got to do. And yes, some people stop too early. They walk away without a plan, without a reason to wake up, without understanding what all that free time can do to a person who doesn't know who they are outside of their job. But then there are a few, a rare few, who somehow get it exactly right. They leave while they still have strength, while they still have curiosity, while they still have people to share time with. Those are the ones I want you to think about as you listen. I once knew a man named Arthur, postal worker, solid guy. Every few months, he'd come in for the same thing: black work shoes, worn down from miles of walking his route. Arthur talked about retirement the way a man talks about escape, with longing, with detail. When I retire, he'd say, I'm taking my wife to Ireland. Her grandmother was from Cork. She's wanted to see it her whole life. He told me that story for 15 years, always with the same smile, always with the same ending. next year. Then, one slow Tuesday, Arthur didn't come in. His wife did. She stood there quietly and told me he'd had a heart attack 3 months before his planned retirement. They never went to Ireland. She told me she buried him with a picture of Cork in his jacket pocket, a place he talked about more than he ever saw. I tell you that because somewhere in your mind there is something you keep postponing, not in an abstract way, something specific, a trip, a conversation, a version of yourself you swear you'll get to later. And the truth is, life gives us obligations, responsibilities, bills. I know that. I ran a business. I raised children. This isn't about abandoning reality. It's about noticing the difference between not now and never, because those two look dangerously similar when you're busy. My wife used to say something that annoyed me when I was younger. She'd say, "Someday isn't real." And she was right. Look at a calendar. There is no someday written on it. Only days that pass, whether you're ready or not. If everything meaningful in your life is waiting for retirement, ask yourself why. Because retirement doesn't magically turn fear into courage. If you don't make time now, you probably won't make it later either. I watched bodies change over time too. Men who walked into my shop strong and confident slowly begin to move like they were carrying invisible weight. I knew a welder named Vincent. Worked hard his entire life. Good pay, solid benefits. But the work chewed him up. Back problems by 40, knees by 50. By 60, he moved like an old man long before his time. I asked him once why he didn't stop. He had enough years in, enough savings. He shook his head and said, "Just a few more." A few more turned into 10. When he finally retired, he couldn't do the things he'd imagined. There's another cost people don't like to count. Relationships. I learned this one the hard way. When my children were young, I worked constantly, 70 hours a week. I told myself I was doing it for them, and part of that was true, but part of it was easier than admitting the truth. Work gave me structure when life felt chaotic. The shop didn't remind me of loss. Home did. So I stayed busy, too busy. I was there for the big moments, the performances, the graduations, but I missed the small ones, the everyday conversations that build closeness. My sister filled in where I didn't. Now, my children are old themselves. We love each other, but there's a quiet distance that never fully closed. You don't notice it forming. You only feel it later. I watched the same thing happen to others. A woman named Eleanor once stood in my shop shaking. Her mother had died that morning. She kept saying the same sentence over and over. I was going to visit next month. Next month never came. Work will always ask for more. It has no finish line. The people who love you do. And one day, without warning, time runs out. Then there's the question people avoid until it's too late. Who are you without your job? I saw men retire and collapse under the weight of emptiness. 40 years of routine gone overnight. One friend of mine retired with a big party. 6 months later, he didn't know how to fill a Tuesday. The days blurred together. Drinking filled the gaps. He didn't die, because he stopped working. He died because he stopped knowing why he was alive. Retirement isn't a vacation. It's a life phase. And a life phase needs shape. Before you stop working, you need to know what you're moving toward, not just what you're escaping. If you can't imagine a normal day that excites you even a little, you're not ready yet. And yes, money matters. I saw people live longer than they planned and struggle because they guessed instead of calculated. Longevity is a blessing that becomes frightening if you didn't prepare for it. You don't need perfection. You need honesty. Guessing is not a plan. I'm old now, older than I ever imagined I'd be. I've buried friends who waited. I've watched others leave at just the right moment. The difference wasn't luck. It was courage. The courage to ask hard questions before life asked them for you. Before I go, let me tell you about Patricia. She retired earlier than expected, gave up extra money to gain time. Her husband was sick. She chose presence over pension. They traveled. They lived. He died years later. She never regretted it, not once. That's the truth people avoid. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time. And here's the question I promised you at the beginning. If you knew exactly how many healthy years you had left, would you still live the way you're living now? Most people never answer that honestly. But if you do, you'll know what to do next.